Welcome to Ignite Your Confidence for women in leadership who want to speak up and stand out. I'm your host, Karen Laus. Here you'll get all of the tips and tools that you need to stand out with unshakable confidence. Let's jump into today's episode. Have you ever had that situation where you look at somebody and you go, oh, I'm so jealous of her. How did she get that? I want that. Well, first of all, it's normal. We are naturally inclined to compare ourselves to other people. And yet, what I want to say is don't be jealous, be inspired to take action. This is something that we all are going to deal with. I have dealt with this many times. And we all know with social media, you look at these posts and you think, oh my gosh, their life is so perfect. I want their life. Why can't I have their life? There is always somebody to compare ourselves to. We are always going to either look better to somebody or look worse than somebody, depending upon the perspective that you come from. The point of this episode is to help you to think about this differently and do the actions, do the steps necessary to go after what you want, and ask yourself if you're willing to do it. Do you really want what that person has? Maybe not when you know all the things that are required to do it. We have to prioritize. So I've got a couple of examples for you. The first thing that came to mind when I was inspired about this, I was in a yoga class. This was recently. And it's been a while since I have been doing my yoga regularly. And I am so grateful to a wonderful yoga studio near my new place in the Oakland Hills that had a great special. And I thought, oh my gosh, okay, perfect opportunity. So here I am in a yoga class, and as I am trying to configure myself in the way that the instructor is instructing us to go, I look at the woman next to me and I look at her and I go, wow, seriously, the way she could move her body and the strength that she had, I was quite astounded. And I'm pretty strong. I have been told that my whole life with the weights that I lift and the poses that I do. And so I feel like I'm pretty confident related to my strength. But I will tell you, I was very humbled. I thought, and I had this inspirational moment where I thought, Karen, don't be jealous, be inspired. And I thought that this might be a good episode for a podcast because I think a lot of us have this challenge. We look at other people around us and we immediately start comparing how we want more of this or more of that. And the old adage really does fit. The grass is greener on the other side. I have also learned the older that I get, the more I reach for things and the more I want things to be better and improve myself and always look for how I can get better, how I can grow. And while that is admirable in a lot of ways, at some point, it's really important to be content and celebrate the things that you already have and be able to enjoy those things. Because if you can't enjoy the things that you have, you're always going to be wanting something better or different. And when we are always wanting something different, we can't possibly feel fulfilled because we're always feeling that we're lacking something. So I want to invite you to live a life without lack. And by the way, that is a great book by, I believe his name is Dallas Willard. Okay, let's talk about this. Don't be jealous, be inspired. Envy is normal. So number one, I've got 4 tips for you here. Number one, envy is normal. It's okay. Let it work for you. That's the thing. If it starts stirring in your heart and tripping you up in life, that's when it becomes a problem. We have to recognize that underneath envy or jealousy is a longing. I recognize you can go, yeah, of course, it's a longing for what they have and I don't have. Well, the longing is a message to yourself, to ask yourself. And this is a way to think about anytime we complain, anytime you hear somebody complaining, ask them, hey, it sounds like you're longing for something. What would you like to be different? That is a very powerful way to catapult someone out of their muck in complaining, or they stay in their muck, but they suddenly realize, oh,
You're not going to be someone who's going to be in the muck with me and complain and complain and complain either. So it's a great way to set a boundary. A little bonus tip there for you. But make sure that you recognize this longing that you have and what you want instead. How can you then create a life that's going to help you to get to where you want to be? But I find that a lot of us look at other people and immediately we think we're jealous of them because it looks like their success came overnight. I think most of us know logically that that is not the case. If you look at anybody famous, well, think about Oprah and all that she went through to get to where she is today. The guy that wrote Hamilton, I'm sorry for anybody, any Hamilton fans that I can never pronounce his name, but he spent ages getting that whole thing right. There's a lot of different famous people that you don't know what they did in advance. You don't know the hard work. So we have to have that perspective. Remember, success does not happen overnight, and it is not usually handed to anybody on a platter. It is something that we earn. And no matter what, even though we might have an entitlement attitude, or we might think, this is owed to me, I deserve this. There might be times when you might get something as being entitled or being a certain person or with the connections that you have or the money that you might have. But generally speaking, at the end of the day, it's all going to come back to sustainable contentment, sustainable fulfillment, and goals reached come from working your butt off to get there. And I can tell you that that is what I did as well. I worked smart. I would also say that I worked hard, but it also is important to remember you don't want to be just churning constantly. You want to work smart. You want to be strategic. That means paying attention, being intentional and diligent and focused about what you want, and then figuring out what are my priorities? What am I going to spend time doing each day to get me to that place? Baby steps every day or incremental steps are going to get you to where you want to be. So number one, remember, envy is okay and normal. Let it work for you. Related to that, staying on point one here, there are 4 that I'm going to be talking to you about. Journal your feelings. Sometimes we have to grieve our losses. I will say when I hear of people that are in their 20s and 30s and they have all the success, it makes me a little bit jealous. And I think, oh my gosh, I'm there where I wish that I would have been, but I'm not there. And yet I have to tell myself, Karen, you made choices. And I want to remind anybody listening to this, you have made choices that have led you to where you are today. Good or bad, here we are in the choices that we have made. The key is to take some self-assessments and say, take a self-assessment and ask yourself, am I happy with where I am? If I'm not, what do I need to do to change it? And I will also tell you, with people in your life that are complaining a lot or they're incessantly unhappy, in a gentle and loving way, say, hey, what can you do to move out of that, do you think? Or what can you do, as some people say, to move the needle? Or how can I help you to move out of this place where it seems like you're stuck? And you say things in a nice and kind way, and people hopefully will be receptive. Number 2, what do you want that she has? And then ask yourself, are you willing to go after it? This is a key thing. What do you want? This is a question that so many of us have to ask ourselves. And for those of you that are fans of The Notebook, I love the scene where Ryan Gosling says to her, my gosh, what's her name? Rachel McAdams, is that right? And he says, what do you want? And she looks so conflicted, and she is conflicted. And yet this happens to a lot of us. We are conflicted. We're not sure. Sometimes it's hard to know. Believe me, I can be very indecisive in certain things in my life. And yet when we start focusing on the thing that we want and then figuring out, okay, how can I dream and move toward that dream? So number 2 is asking yourself, what do you want that she has? And then the second part of that is ask yourself, are you willing to go after it? And number 3 is to dream big. This, of course, is all up to you, but I'm going to encourage you to dream big. Write down what you want. Write it down. Write it on a Post-it. Write it on a piece of paper. Type it into your computer. That woman, I love the author. I love her so much. I don't even remember her name. Hollis is her last name. She wrote the book, Girl Stop Apologizing and Girl Wash Your Face. She has a great technique in her books. She calls it, I believe it's called 10-10-1. Please forgive me, Rachel, for misquoting you. But the point is that you write down 10 dreams that you want in 10 years, and then a 90-day goal to help you move closer to one of those dreams. And I love her recommendation is only work on one thing at a time. But the key is you say these 10 dreams every day, and you say it as if it has already happened. So one of my dreams is to own property in New York. So I say I own property in New York. Or maybe I think for a lot of people, they want to be financially free. I want to be, I am financially free. Notice how I said that. I wouldn't recommend what I made a mistake there and said, I want to be, because you want to say it as if you already have it. Claim it as if it's already true. And when you dream big like that and you act as if, that gets all of these things in motion. It gets your subconscious brain in motion. It gets your emotions in motion. And there's so much research that speaks to the more you can feel something, the more you imagine it, the more you can touch it, taste it, smell it, picture it. All of that in your brain, because your brain is so powerful, it's going to help you get to where you want to be. The key is to use it to your advantage. 10-10-1, 10 dreams, 10 goals, 190-day goal that you can reach. And that will help you to get there. So thank you, Rachel Hollis. There we go. That's her name to help us get what we want. Dream big. I am a huge fan of vision boards. I am also a huge fan of acting as if. I love to take a piece of paper out and write down the date as if it is already that date. So for example, the other night, I am working on manifesting my dreams of speaking at the Chase Center in San Francisco as my own event by 2030. I went there the other night and I wrote down I was actually on my computer and I was in my car and I wrote down at the top, May 6th, 2030. And I started writing about how I imagine. I said, I can see the women all coming up of the escalator, all of these people coming together with tips on confident communication. They're coming to come together for community, connection, and more confidence. And I am helping them to do that. I got out of my car and fans greeted me and I was smiling, having a great time, knowing the difference that I have made in their lives. And seeing people saying how they have become free due to stepping into their confidence and speaking up for themselves made me very emotional. So I'm imagining all of these things and talking about it as if it's already happened. And that is going to set things in motion. There is something so powerful about it. I can't explain it. I am not a brain expert, but I will say it works. It works. It works. It works. Dream big. Number 4 is make a plan for this stuff. You have to work for it. You have to figure out what is the action plan? What do I need to do on a daily, monthly, weekly, yearly, quarterly basis? Set these milestones of time frames and keep taking action, even if you feel like it's not happening. Things are happening. If you're taking action, the odds are things are going to eventually happen in your favor. One of my very first coaches gave me an exercise called 100 Actions. And I love this exercise. In a month, he said, if you write down 100 actions, and we're not talking about projects, we're talking about actions like call Sue or email John. When we have 100 actions working toward our dreams in a month, he'll be pretty darn sure something is going to move that needle that month. I will tell you, I never got to more than 60 documented actions, but the way that I did it is I got one of those big pieces of flip chart paper and I put it up in my closet at the time. And every time I would make an action, I would write it down with a marker. So I could visually see this thing, and it was so powerful to do that. That is also part of my goal in my business, is every week to talk to 20 new people, or 20, not necessarily new, but 20 connections around what it is that they're looking for potentially in business where I could serve them. And there's something about, if you want to generate revenue in your business, you want to make your dreams happen, whether they're financial, physical, whatever it might be, or in your career path, those actions are going to get you a lot closer than not doing much at all. So decide for yourself, how much time do you want to spend on this every day, and then break it out into bite-sized chunks, or think about it from a year, month, whatever works for you, but set a time frame and stick to that and the actions along with it. And what I want to share is a story. Some of you may have heard of my 3Ds formula that came out of my focus and my dreams. And that is that there's something called 3Ds. And I realized this happened with me. In September 2019, I decided, that's the first D, decide. I decided that I was going to commit to a group that Jess Ekstrom created called Mic Drop Workshop. And she has a group and a bunch of programs to help women speakers get on more stages. And $1,000 in 2019 was a lot of money for me. I put that money down in faith that things were going to move. And that money made, and my decision with the money behind it, the investment in myself with the money, as well as the mindset, and well as the action that I'm doing this, is the thing that really catapulted my success and ultimately my focus in the beginning. So I made a decision that day that I was going to be quitting my job and leaving the following fall, or let's just say around Christmas time. And so that was 2019. So of course, we all know what happened in 2020. Then COVID happened. I ended up quitting my job in July, and that's when I really launched. But before that, here's the second D. I declared it. I declared, I am going to do this. I am going to be a speaker specifically for women in confident communication, and I'm going to reach 10 million women in the next 10 years. So we stop missing opportunities and we are free to have the life that we want. The third D is do it. Go out there, take action, do the thing you want to do, the things, plural, that mean the work that you have to take to get there. These things are not comfortable a lot. I don't love being on making the calls to call people sometimes, or emailing the emails. Sometimes it takes work to put a thoughtful email together. And it's amazing. It's like, what's his name? Mark Twain, that used to say, I would have written you a shorter letter if only I had had more time. And boy, how true that is. The more thoughtful, the more pithy your emails are, the more time that they take to write. So I get it. This stuff is not for the faint of heart, but if you want to make your dreams come true, you've got to go for it. And so many things have happened for me because I have set things in motion through vision and then action. And now with my mission, 10 and 10, to eradicate self-doubt in 10 million women in 10 years, I will tell you, I have never felt so focused in my life, and it is changing lives. And that is the thing that is the most rewarding for me. To know that you're making a difference in people's lives there's just nothing like it. There's nothing like it. So let's review. Number 1, envy is okay. Let it work for you. Number 2, what do you want that she has? And ask yourself, are you willing to go after it? Number 3, dream big. Number 4, work for it. Make a plan, take action, and do it with the 3Ds. Decide, declare, and do. There you have it, folks. I'd love to hear how these tips worked for you. Again, I am a keynote speaker and would love to be invited in to your organization if you would like to have a speaker that could motivate the employees, the women, the men, all genders. I do focus on women, as most of you know, but I work with all different types of organizations, whether it's corporate training, facilitating retreats. I actually also train facilitators if you're looking for a train the trainer for facilitation. But my favorite thing is being on a stage in corporate settings, specifically corporate events, corporate conferences, to help women ask for what they want, and most importantly, to get it. I would love to hear from you. If you'd like to send me a note, please do. Thanks again for listening. And until next time, have a great day, evening, morning, whatever it is in your time zone.
And that's a wrap of another episode of Ignite Your Confidence. I'm your host, Karen Laus. Thank you so much for listening. If you loved today's episode, please subscribe and leave a review. It helps other people find the podcast faster, and it certainly helps me. If you're interested in more tips and tools around confidence, please join me over in my Facebook group called Ignite Your Confidence with Karen Laus. Remember, you too can stand out with unshakable confidence.